Wow, we're officially live. We did it, Stephen.
We are live.
Yeah.
So, hi everyone. I'm Stephen. I'm Director of Cybersecurity at Xalient, and I'm really pleased today to be joined by Brian Deitch, who's got a great title of Chief Technology Evangelist at Zscaler. We're going to talk you through how the Zscaler platform addresses today's cybersecurity challenges and approaches to implement the Zscaler services into your environment. So I'd like to hand over to you, Brian, first.
Right on, man. Thank you so much. Let me start sharing my screen. We'll go from here. Stephen, let me know when you can see the old pyramid of greatness, and then we know that we made it a step forward.
Oh, I can see a pyramid of greatness.
Okay, so that number one, that's a good thing. Number two, PowerPoint sucks. Who's with me? And then number three, what the hell are you looking at? Yeah, this is what I look like, at least from the waist up. My name is Brian Deitch, the Chief Technology Evangelist at Zscaler. You might be wondering, is that a made-up title? Maybe it is. Come see me at RSA. We'll talk about it. But quick housekeeping. There's a piece of glass in front of me. I will be writing on it. Yes, my wall is black. And if you see me looking over here, I'm trying to figure out, like, is someone talking to me? Or trying to check the chat. But guess what? I'm not as young and youthful as you might think, so I can't read it. So Steve might just kind of interrupt me as I go through this stuff. And with that said, let's jump right into it. Now, before I tell you how great Xalient and Zscaler really are, I want to talk a little bit about, about your guys' environments. Oh, it would work if I have all my lights on so you can actually see what I'm writing. Here we go. And I usually start up over here in the right-hand side of the thing and call this like private cloud. And when we think private cloud, think of stuff like Azure, AWS, and GCP. And more in particular, when you think of these type of things, this is where your applications live. So we're going to say, hey, you have applications that live over here, and we can call those applications 1, 2, and 3. But more importantly, if you have applications, then you also have data. So if you are subscribed over here, then your data is going to live over here. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't take any little wacko with a credit card can go out and subscribe to something like maybe OCI, right? Maybe that's not a corporate standard, but you need to have hands and eyes and visibility into that. Then we all come over here and think of like SaaS-based applications that you guys are all consuming today. And usually the big three that I call out that are really common with customers, like M365, maybe some Salesforce.com, and ServiceNow. But again, if your application's over here, these SaaS-based, you're subscribed to it, it's a sanctioned application, then you've kind of bid off on that. And not only is this like an application, but your data lives over here as well. And there's for sure one place you don't want your data to end up, and that's going to be the internet. And unfortunately, you can't just like block the internet or else your employees will like freak out and quit. So you have to be able to give them access to it. Can't write my E's today for some reason. And by access to it, I mean, what are your employees generally doing? Maybe they're going out checking personal email. They have AOL. It's a joke. Maybe they're using some Gen AI tools. Stephen, remind me to tell you about the first prompt I ever saw logged in Zscaler. It's actually pretty funny. And then maybe they're going out to nefarious websites like briandeitch.com. They're just riddled with malware. But again, you don't want your data to end up over there. And then, of course, you guys still probably have data centers, whether it's a colo, brick and mortar, chupacabra. I have no idea. We come over here, and most companies are going to have at least 1, 2 for DR, and then if you're really big, you might have them all around the world. And back at the data center, you have like a security stack, and that security stack is doing security stack type of things. So you might, let's say you have some type of zones, you have like a DMZ, you might have like an internal network. And on the internal network, you have internal applications that host data. So we'll call them applications 1, 2, and X. They're slightly different. You also have like a database DMZ. And then if we can kind of highlight what a security stack is, what I mean by that, these will come over here. And it could be a UTM, or you can just have a bunch of point solutions, but you might have DNS-based security, boring things like next generation firewall, IPS, move up the stack into sandboxing, gross things like VPN, secure web gateway, deception, CASB, DLP, not BLP, DLP. I'm running out of space here. And then, of course, to be able to do that correctly, you have to be able to decrypt SSL and TLS. Now, we would love to believe that this is like your entire environment, but unfortunately, it's not. You still have some remote offices, hospitals, clinics, factories. I have no idea. Let's call them a branch. And at the branch, you might be doing things like MPLS or SD-WAN. I'll be honest with you, it doesn't matter to me. I can see there can be some cost consolidation right here as well. Maybe allow local breakouts. Maybe you backhaul all that. You might even have another little security stack right here, doing, again, some more security stack type of things. You're going to say, hey, we have these zones. We have like our user network. We got our employees over here. And I'll put a smiley face on them because they're going to be happy when they're on Zscaler. You might have some OT stuff as well. And then last but not least, you have some IoT. And I always laugh because I think IoT is more like IOC, the Internet of Crap. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you why. But when I say IoT, it could be like an Epson printer, HVAC controls, the list goes on and on. Any internet connected device that you don't really kind of own. And of course, all your users don't live in the branch. They also can be working from anywhere. It's like Steven today. So come over here. And again, we'll make him happy. And I'll put WFA. And what I mean by that is WFA is work from anywhere. And in the Zscaler world, what I mean by that is it's a very consistent policy and rule set that follows the user regardless of location. So it's going to be the same at home, at Starbucks, abroad, and in the office. So anything that I tell you that I can do right here works over here, and like vice versa. And then if we have enough time today, we'll connect the dots on another little aspect right here. We'll think, I'll put BYOD. But really, when I think BYOD, that could be grandma's computer. That could be a third-party contractor that needs to talk to stuff, but it's just like not an asset that you guys own. And then just to kind of button it up, when we think about your device's environment, you're going to have some type of EDR. We'll say CrowdStrike, right? It doesn't really matter to me what you guys have. I think they're a great partner of ours, but you'll have other things that are on here. VPN. You might have like a CASB agent, secure web gateway agent, DLP agent, deception, digital end user monitoring. Like the list goes on and on. Like you over time, you kind of feel the burden of that whole like endpoint fatigue. So we look at this and say, hey, it made a lot of sense to take your users when they were like on the network here and all of the applications live right here and to run them through the security appliance right here, right? And then things have evolved over time. Now you have applications over here and your data. You have applications over here and your data. And then you have more and more people using the internet. And so backhauling them, hairpinning them to a data center, just at the end of the day, it's kind of anti-cloud. Even the degree of like someone here has like even like an express route or a direct connect linking these things to do together. So I'll just do ER or DC for direct connect. And again, like I look at this design and I think there's a lot of room for optimization, but more importantly, I want to enhance your security posture as well. And this is where we kind of come into Zscaler and some of the cool things that we do. And again, like this is going to probably seem like a lot today to kind of consume, but just kind of look at this from an open-minded perspective. And then two, just know that Xalient can help you guys roll this stuff out. And this, what we're going to cover here today is like maybe 35% of the entire platform. So there's a lot more room to everything that we do that we don't even have time to cover. So let's jump right into kind of like how Zscaler plays into this. So I'm going to draw up the old Zscaler cloud. I'm going to try to do my best not to overwhelm you today with 3-letter acronyms that you're just not familiar from Zscaler, right? I'm going to kind of keep it high level and real simple, but I'm going to give you at least one, so everyone pay attention. I'm going to call it ZTE. So that's the Zero Trust Exchange. If there's a place to put in the chat, Stephen will probably write in there, but ZTE is the Zscaler cloud. What you need to know about this is we have like 150 points of presence globally. We have between 45 million users, maybe even 47 million users on our cloud daily. That equates to right around 6.2 terabits per second of traffic. And we're multi-tenant, which means I see all that information. I can use the cloud effect to understand good traffic versus bad and help protect you. Which means if you're in the US and you wake up and you look at your thing from CNET, do they even have a website anymore, right? Like some type of news article, and you're like, oh no, there's this bad thing that's out there. Well, we caught that in EMEA like 6 hours earlier. You're going to be just fine, right? So I look at it through that lens. I got all these users, all this traffic, plus hundreds of millions of workloads. And a workload is going to be anything that's not a user. So think of OT, IoT, server to server type of traffic, server to private cloud. The list kind of goes on and on. I want to be able to help you guys secure that. And I don't want to clutter up my cloud too much, but this is, just know this, that security stack and more is going to be available here to you. And why that's important is that you don't have to really worry about things. You don't have to do the patches, maintenance, upgrades, scale events. That the ADAS is on me to kind of figure out, not for you. Make your life a heck of a lot easier. So when we look at this, and I'm saying my cloud is everywhere, right? This helps you guys be able to, again, to work from anywhere, from any location, and to be able to stitch those things together. So what are like the 3 biggest hurdles into adopting zero trust? And it's really this simple. 1, we have to figure out how to get the traffic there, and I'll bounce back and forth a little bit on that topic. 2, I need to be able to decrypt it, and I'll talk about that as they talk about the traffic forwarding. And then 3, I have to authenticate it. But let's back into this real quick. When I think about authentication, I'm not here to make your life more difficult. And so we're going to come over here and say everyone has some type of federated identity, an SSO, and we'll call, I guess I'll call it Okta today. I'm going to work with anybody. Azure Active Directory, which I think is now Entra ID. I think it's funny the identity company is having an identity crisis naming their products. You can have Ping, it doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at that SAML assertion. That way I don't have to see your usernames and passwords, or specifically passwords. And then I have skim protocol right here to ensure that something gets changed right here. It's replicated into the Zero Trust Exchange, be able to pick up the identity. And it doesn't matter what identity provider you guys use. It might take 10 minutes to set up, and that's if you spend 5 minutes talking about your feelings. Like it's really just kind of a turnkey thing the way that it should be. So first things first, we figure out how to set up identity. Step 2 is how do we start getting traffic to the Zscaler cloud? And I'm going to be introducing another agent to the mix. Now, I think I can hear everyone's eyes roll when I say that, like, ugh, not another agent. And yes, there is another agent, but there's some good news, right? I'll be real blunt. At the end of this, whether it's your first 3 months or 6 months or 3 years down the road, depending on how, what things you're trying to do, your timeframes, other things that you want to retire, I would say a typical deployment could be done within 3 to 6 months. I do have customers that are crazy, not crazy. Sorry, that's offensive. I do have customers that are a little bit more risk or change friendly. Let's call it like that. And they've done these things in like as little as like 100,000 users in 21 days. So all things are possible. But I'm going to add a client right here, and I'm going to give you peace of mind that if you have this agent, it can go away. This agent can go away. This agent can go away. This one will go away. And same thing with this. You're still going to keep EDR. I'll talk a little bit more on that here towards the end. But our agent, one of my favorite things about this is, and I was really skeptical when I first started working at Zscaler, was like, I don't know, man. Like when I was on the customer side, I rolled out a lightweight agent. It took out the entire usairways.com farm. And I kind of vowed to never use an endpoint agent again. To the degree when I started working here almost 8 years ago, I had told my wife that I'm going to quit if this thing sucks, and then I go work for one of the competitors. Lo and behold, it didn't suck. I actually cornered the developer. His name is David Creedy, still works here today, and said, dude, I need to understand like why we say that this is like a lightweight, no blue screen of death, no high CPU, no battery drains. I don't see this in our support logs. Like, why? He put his arm around me. He's like, come here, you big dum-dum. What you need to understand is that I'm just using this as at the end of the day, just a lightweight forwarder. Does the traffic go here or does it not? All of the things that we do that would cause a battery drain, high CPU, blue screen death actually occur here in our cloud, things that we would have to manage. And so the ADAS is on us. And we have resiliency and scale kind of built in. And so when I learned that, kind of this light bulb moment of like, oh, I'm offloading that to the cloud. Traffic's going there anyways. Might as well make that first stop being Zscaler. So traffic comes in. I've authenticated it. And 90 to 95% of your traffic going this direction is always going to be encrypted. And so you have to do that. So if you're not decrypting that traffic, you're only doing security on 10%. Like that's not a good thing. And so the underlying tone of the Zero Trust Exchange is to allow the good, block the bad, stop the stupid. Same, simple as that. Now, you won't hear Jay say that, who's our CEO, but I can say stop the stupid because I do stupid things from time to time. Like I once tried to iron a shirt with the bottom of a hot pot of coffee. It didn't work. So I digress. Now that I have users coming over here, I've bundled in an SSL cert right here to allow me to do that man in the middle. You will never have to try to figure out how to do that. And what I mean by that is you have a premium cloud service, you have Xalient right here, and we're going to roll out best practices cloud-wide for all of your users, whether developer, marketing, sales, executives, ensure that when you turn this on, it doesn't disrupt any line of business, right? It becomes clear. So now I can have, look at this. I see a user, then come out, and I could do different verdicts. Like you can go out to personal email, but maybe you can only receive email, but you can't send. Or maybe you can send and receive, but you can't do attachments. Or maybe you can send, receive, do attachments, but you can't do something that would take like sensitive data and upload it to personal email. And then I even have some customers that say, hey, you know what? I don't even want to manage that. I'm going to put that user into RBI, and hopefully this is like a familiar acronym for everyone, but remote browser isolation, which we do, right? So that user goes out there, they have this very native experience going out to their personal email, but their ability to copy and paste to that destination completely revoked. Their ability to upload or even download completely revoked. So you have peace of mind that you can allow them to do more, right? But they can't introduce any risk to the organization. Looking at Gen AI, this is a big topic. And so this is part of the old data protection platform with Zscaler. And whether it's ChatGPT or Copilot, you name it, we have the ability to log the prompts, which means I can log the entire conversation for you of what's going on. So not only do I help you identify which ones are out there, if you're trying to build a good reason to block ChatGPT and use maybe a different corporate standard, I'm going to provide that for you. So I did this recently for a finance company. And the very first question was, and I kid you not, that they logged was, how do I tell my coworker that he stinks? Like that was actually in there. The second one was some code that had secrets and passwords being uploaded to ChatGPT for some type of code review. As you can see, if you're not paying for it, you're the product. They were not paying for that. And that was that instant moment that they were looked at this and said, there was so much good stuff that can come out of Zscaler, how to embrace Gen AI securely and safely, and more, or even turn that back around to the business, be like, hey, we don't use this one, we use this one. So think of like, we use Microsoft Copilot, and we just block or put browser isolation in Gen AI for like ChatGPT. So again, allow the good, block the bad, stop the stupid. Let's say you have a user wakes up, they go out to briandeitch.com. That thing's just riddled with malware and phishing links and all that bad stuff, and doing malicious things, right? Let's say that there's like a 0-day attack on there. Now, I told you earlier that I think every one of your endpoints should have some type of EDR, right? It could be CrowdStrike, it could be SentinelOne, it could be Defender. I believe that in my heart that you need to have that everywhere, whether it's users or servers over here or servers up over here in the cloud. But I also believe that all cars should have airbags, but I think it's more fundamental to prevent the accident from happening in the first place. And what I mean by that is if I have a user going out and they click the link that has a 0 day, I think we can all agree that if I could block it here as opposed down right here, that's a better thing, right? And I'm not casting any aspersions towards EDR, right? At some point in time, I will find something that they've never seen before, and they'll find something before I do as well, right? So it's kind of the best of both worlds. But I look at this, and when it comes time to dealing with 0 day, ransomware, and malware, I reject those things the same way I used to reject presents from mom's new boyfriend. Like, no thanks, Dale. But instead of doing like a weird thing and making it hard for you, what makes me special is that I can do it at line rate, which means if I've never seen it before, I can produce a verdict of like, hey, it's benign, allow the user to download it. It's not actually a bad thing. But if it's bad, I'll tell them it's bad, and then I'll still throw it into my sandbox and give you visibility. So what I mean by that is like all of this stuff I'm about to show you available via the Zscaler UI, API, or logging, by the way. And on this sandbox detail report, 0 is like benign and 100 is the worst thing ever, right? So this one was a 90. So we look at that and say, that's like the dog pooped on the carpet, the Roomba ran it over. It's disgusting, right? We don't want this in our network. That machine learning analysis, that is the thing that produced the instant verdict that it was bad. Now, I thought it was suspicious, so I block it. I throw it into the sandbox to tell you why. I want to give you great IOCs and IOAs. And I show you if my attack framework is something that's important to you, I will tie that down. I will show you if it had polymorphic code, try to delete itself from the recycling bin, security bypasses. I'll give you a PCAP of it. I'll give you the actual binary, the actual drop files. If you want to do your own forensics on it, it will be available to you. If we scroll down a little bit further, other great things you can use for your threat hunting: file properties, process summaries, drop file locations. That screenshot right there wasn't detonated right here. It was detonated right here. So that screenshot, you can operationalize it. Like, hey, anyone, if you see this on your computer, like the help desk sends it out, unplug your computer and spike it like a football, like your Gronk, right? Just like get that thing the heck out of here. And last but not least, let's say that you're not very motivated to open up a PCAP. I'll spare you the challenges right there. We'll go down to the network packets. You can take that. Let's say that destination IP address 178.151.131.215 is like the command and control. You could take that, plug it into your SIM, and get great visibility. Now, for everyone listening, I'm talking about work from anywhere, which means I actually want to do this as well. I want to take that traffic for any user, even when they're at the branch office. I'm going to send them directly out here to secure them, which also means I'm either going to completely replace that security stack right here or do some cost avoidance, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. So we all kind of agree, going out to the internet, what about SaaS? Same thing. If you're Microsoft, I am directly peered with them. I'm also directly peered with like 800 other SaaS-based applications that are out there. The Zero Trust Exchange is running largely in Equinix, and then your mileage is going to vary outside of like North America, right? So if there's an Equinix facility, we'll be there. But if you have challenging geographies like mainland China, Middle East, India, then I have to kind of work with the local government. So I might be in a different data center that they recommend or prefer this to be in. Looking at other SaaS-based applications, again, I can provide complete visibility in everything that's going on. I can do tenant ID, like the list goes on and on. Now, I show this solid line, and I'm going to show this dotted line right here as well, little arrow, and a dotted line right here, because I also do API type of connections into both SaaS and private cloud. So now I have the ability to enforce stuff out of band, right? So think of CASB. One great example would be I have a podcast and I use the corporate email. And then every once in a while, when I invite a guest, I share that podcast folder out with a third party. It's going to go through there and it's going to say, hey, do you really want to do that? And I say yes, no. If I say yes, then it will be approved for however long. 1 day, 30 days, and then we'll immediately revoke the connection. Or if I did it accidentally, I thought I was putting in my email address, but I put in someone else's, it will find that misconfiguration for us. Same thing on the branch. I want to get that user directly out to the cloud as fast as possible. I don't want to take them from here over here and then out. It's anti-cloud. So as I start to connect the dots, everyone here should be thinking, okay, Brian, you can't install an agent on IoT or OT devices. So how are you going to take that traffic and get it up over here? So I do want to get rid of that security stack, whether it's a firewall or even SD-WAN, right? I actually look at MPLS and SD-WAN as a giant red flag. And the reason why I say that is that you're taking your network and expanding the attack surface. If the branch is quote unquote a trusted network, then anyone or anybody on this trusted network can talk to anything over here. Maybe not like highly sensitive areas, but again, like if it's reachable, it's breachable, and that's a bad idea. So I come through here and say, no, we don't want to actually do that. I want to sever that connection. And we do that again with something, I guess I'm lying today. I have a second acronym for everyone. I promise you it's not Blue Coat. We call it branch connector. It's an actual device that lives on-prem. And the goal here, and I'm going to do a dash, this to make it a little bit different right here, is I can take traffic for any device that does not have a user agent and send it to the Zero Trust Exchange to be able to perform inspection. And I'm going to do that transparently, whether it's IoT or it's OT. I get that traffic. That's the wrong marker. And I can transparently intercept that traffic and send it to the Zero Trust Exchange. Now, we're going to be talking about internet and SaaS right now, and then we'll connect the dots on like how I do this over here in a minute. So now that I'm transparently sending that traffic, it literally just comes over here. Boom, boom, boom. I do my inspection. And let's pick on IoT. I'm going to do some security weak OPSEC right now, but 100% of the traffic in my house today, including the voice and the video of this conversation, is coming to you live over a branch connector, right? I'm actually sending all of that. And the view on that is kind of interesting. So here's my network, at least from a Zscaler lens. I got a bunch of crap here. I love my technology. And you can see down there in the lower left-hand side, I have 24 IoT devices, various cameras and stuff like that to control the house. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And when I click on that, what is neat about this is it shows all of these discovered devices. I discover them, like all the stuff that's right here, transparently, right? I just did that. And then you can see the IP addresses. We don't really care about that because that's like old school mentality, but I can show you that. And the most important thing here is I can start to auto label the devices, and then I can tie that to a firewall rule. So a good example would be Lutron, right? Let's say that Lutron, it's a device that is controlling some of the lights in my house, or at least it used to. So I click on that, and it shows the flows that I'm saying, and it shows the IP addresses, but more importantly, it's talking about the top level domain there that it's communicating with, the ports and the protocols. Now, that's kind of cool because regardless of your branch and things that get plugged into it, why would you have like an HVAC device that can talk to anything on the internet or a printer? You're going to take that and say any printer that gets plugged in, you don't have to go out to Epson's website, find out what URLs, ports, and protocols they use. I'm going to do that for you. You'll set a firewall rule for those devices here in the Zero Trust Exchange. And remember, the first hop out is right here. And when it arrives, like, oh, you're that IoT device. You can't talk to like briandeitch.com. Maybe you've been compromised. Something weird is going on, right? But you can go out to the firmwares and get uploads or downloads. And you know what's kind of interesting about that is on that one device in my house, the thing that kind of threw me for a loop right here is that it was the only IoT device I have in my entire house that is communicating over both SSL and HTTP. Everything else is just SSL, right? So I decided to dive into this just a little bit, and I was astounded. So this was happening every day for almost 6 months between 12 a.m. and about 5 a.m. Arizona time. That website, firmware-downloads.iot.lutron.io, is their website. And it was trying to pull down a Debian package that had an embedded piece of malware in it. Had Zscaler missed it, I guess the threat here would have been like, that could have been an entry point into my network. Pretty scary stuff. But even if that had happened, what's kind of neat about it is it needs to beacon back. It needs to go out somewhere. it can only go out to lutron.io. So if it's trying to beacon back to like briandeitch.com, I'm going to be like the soup Nazi, right? Like, boom, no soup for you. And then I'm going to light up the dashboard to let me know that something malicious in there. So again, IoT is the IOC, the Internet of Crap. I don't think you're going to have a lot of devices or any devices that are OT based that are going out to the internet, unless you're larger manufacturer when you started to innovate a little bit in that space of like that supply chain right now is making, I don't know, Diet Coke, and then a big order comes in. Now it's making just regular Coke. I've seen some type of automations right there. I'm not saying Coke's a customer or anything like that, but it's that kind of idea. I think everyone knows what Coke is versus some random term. So we've talked about how we support internet and SaaS. Now, like, what about a couple of big things? How do we get traffic back over here, back over here? What things can I actually eliminate right here? Same thing with ExpressRoute and Direct Connect. And so let's talk about that. So if I'm coming through, I'm going to be blunt. DNS-based security is out the door. I don't think I'm going to replace every firewall in your environment, but I think there's some cost avoidance right here. I'm going to replace an awful lot of them, to be honest with you. You might have something for your customer-facing website, but again, even then, I would like throw an F5 in front of that. Like firewalls is not doing anything anyways. IPS can go away. Sandboxing. Oh, VPN, that's going to go away. I'm going to show you right now. Secure web gateway. These are all the things that I do in the Zscaler cloud. We'll talk more about DLP and whatnot, and like what that actually looks like, how you do it securely, and more importantly, how do you do it effectively. So let's talk about, we're going to start here with the work from anywhere person. And that work from anywhere person, if they have VPN on today, where do they end up, right? They end up over here on the network somewhere. And so 9 times out of 10, they end up like on the internal zone because they had a password and they had a posture check, and they're allowed to talk to applications 1, 2, and X, even though they probably don't need to. Like you gate kept like the database DMZ, unless you're a privileged user, then you can talk to that. And so I look at this and say, if you were malicious, right? You did like an mmap, if you're in, your goal is to bounce around the network like a field mouse and just leave a path of destruction, right? Compromise an endpoint, find the data, exfil it, hold you guys ransomware. We don't want to allow those things. So I just say that your biggest liability in life is the user, putting the user on the network. So we want to keep them off the network. So I just struck out VPN. It doesn't exist anymore. So if I have a user coming over here and they're saying, hey, I want to talk to application 1 on, I don't know, Brian.com, and I'm feeling patriotic today. So it's on, I don't know, port 1776. What does that look like? And in the Zscaler world, what I do is I take that traffic and it's encapsulated in my little tunnel right here. It arrives here in the zero trust exchange. I look at the identity, and then I produce a verdict. Allow, block, whip-de-doo. That's what you've had all this time. Steer, isolate, warn, deceive, coach. Like there's so many different things you can do. But in the interest of time, I'm going to pick on Steven. So let's say Steven is coming through. He's asking for this application. Now, again, this is the same, whether it's here or here. And even though I showed this as one little blue line, there's multiple tunnels to our approach. That's the reason why I can achieve feeds and speeds and give a better overall user experience. It arrives right here. I look at this and it says, Steve can talk to application 1, but application 1 lives here and here. So like, who's going to do that? That's all on me to figure out. But more importantly, how do I get the traffic from here down here if I pulled out VPN? You know, I use like a dark alleyway? No, that's how Batman's parents died. And so what I give you for on-prem is a little lightweight VM. It's called App Connector. You'll deploy these for N+1 for redundancy. And I don't want you to make any changes to your network. You have to make 0 changes to your applications. They just need to have application adjacency. They need to be able to talk to these internal applications. And then instead of allowing traffic to come in, it's going to reach outbound. So true inside out type of connectivity right here. And it's going to do that over TLS, perfect forward secrecy, and certificate-based authentication. Why? You already know why. You can't man in the middle it. It's not subject to a replay attack. And certificate allows us to identify that it's yours, right? Your Brian.com, not some other third party. And what we're going to do right here is we're going to kind of have like this little ET phone home moment. And since the verdict is allowed, we're going to make a little connection baby. And that traffic now on this outbound connection is going back over as a miniature microtunnel right here comes in and allows Steven to talk to application 1 without putting Steven on the network. I'm a huge fan of this. What happens with all of your internal applications is they immediately become cloudy. And what I mean by that is you can get there if we know who you are. You have authorization to do so. I haven't talked about it, but just know I can posture the device. But you will never again be on the same network as the application. You're going to access this the same way you would Office 365. Think about that for a moment, how valuable that is. I'm keeping those gross, yucky users off the network, and I'm giving them the ability to talk to these applications. Now, I need ExpressRoute and Direct Connect to go away as well. Because in theory, you could say, oh, this thing right here could use ExpressRoute to come up over here and talk to application 1 for whatever. But application 3 doesn't really exist over here, so that's what we would do. And I'm going to say gross, yucky, right? Backhauling traffic and then sending it out to the private cloud would be anti-cloud at best. And so this exact same architecture is going to follow us even over here at the private cloud. That's what I want to do. I'm all about designing cows in a pasture and not unicorns. So I'm going to give you that same VM that I have back at the data center. And all it needs to do is talk internal to your application. So if you're like a AWS person, you're going to have a VPC that can talk to a bunch of VPCs, and then it has no inbound connectivity. Your inbound ACL right here is going to be an any deny. Same thing over here, any deny. You can't breach it. You can't breach it. Can't DDoS it, SQL inject it, cross-site script. It just doesn't exist. And this is going to reach outbound to the Zero Trust Exchange. And normally you would have like a GSLB problem, like the global server load balance. And you have to figure out, oh, you know, this user is hanging out in, or I'm sorry, this data center is in, let's say, New York City. And this user currently, Steven's hanging out, I don't know, in New Jersey. And this other application, the other application 1 is over here, and it's only deployed on the West Coast for some reason. And I am always looking at the telemetry from here to here, here to here, up here as well, front side, back side to the application, that the moment that user says, hey, I want to talk to application 1, it's available in both locations, but I'm going to steer them to the fastest way, which means Steven's accounts can go from here, up, and then down. Simple as that. Now, if this application goes down, he's not stuck in limbo in some sort of weird thing. He's now going to come over here, up, and then over. It's all transparent to the user. And when they come into a branch office, let's say that he's in New Jersey, he's like, I want to go to Arizona and hang out with that bald dude from Arizona with the beard. And this branch is in Arizona. When he arrives right here, in fact, anytime that there's a network change, that traffic will always be subject to being steered differently. So he comes here. It comes up. It's like, oh, you son of a gun. You're no longer in New Jersey. You're hanging out in Arizona. I'm going to put over here to application 1 that's in, US West 2A, I think is what AWS calls it. I'm going to just send that user to the closest application every single time. And what also look at this, if you have application 1, but you also have, let's see here. I'm actually going to change this a little bit. Let's say you now open up another browser tab. You have application X and application 3. Remember, I said you have a multi-tunnel approach to security and doing things. So there will be a singular connections, and take this user and connect them right here all the way to this application. Then I'll have another connection going for application X down over here. You never have to manage it. This is what we do. It's the way that we achieve scale and greatness and be able to deliver an incredible user experience. Now, we're looking at this. It might sound too good to be true. I promise you it's not. This is all kind of Zscaler 101. I think we're doing good on time. By the way, Steven, if you need to interrupt me, like I said before, go for it. But I'm going to try to talk about how I communicate with OT devices, how we troubleshoot this son of a gun, and then we'll talk about third parties coming in, and then I'll turn it back over to you. You can speak now or forever hold your peace, but we'll jump right into it. OT.
That's fine. I think I just want to
go for it, bud.
just want to section some time about how we get to this position, because there's a lot of great capability in there, and the migration from the legacy solutions that we're replacing and the challenge they provide, and getting the visibility to be able to ascertain how these new technologies are implemented in the context of the customer environment, I think is key in how they get the value out of the solution, both in the short term but also in the longer term as well. I'll let you finish your narrative on this, and then I'll jump in after that when you're ready.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you, Stephen. And everyone listening, we'll probably do that with about 10 minutes left in the conversation. One thing I did want to button up on the whole, like taking users off the network, giving them access to the applications that they should only be able to talk to, as at the end of this, Xalient's going to get to the point where you're going to have true user to application segmentation. The user can only talk to the applications that they're allowed to talk to. So in the case of Stephen, we love Stephen, right? He's trying to bounce around the network like that field mouse is leaving a path to destruction. He shouldn't talk to application X. Rather than just block him, I can actually deceive him as well. I can throw him up, but I'm not going to do like a honeypot that lives back over here in the data center. I'm going to throw him on a honeypot that lives over here in the Zscaler cloud. It gets fired up on demand. And when he arrives there, I know definitively that's him. Like, you can't trick me. I know who you are. And if he tries to replay different credentials, I can let him do that. Let's say it was like, Sarah, like he compromised Sarah with some type of phishing email, and then he uses her credentials, he logs into that box, and then he goes out here. Sorry, Zoom is trying to update. He's going to try to go up here, pull something down. I'll let him pull it down. And then he wants to split it from east to west. There is no east or west because none of the network. I kept him off the network. And so now I'm going to take a very high fidelity alert. Hey, everyone, Steven's a bad guy. Sarah's been compromised. Let's reset her password and let's promote, Steven to customer. I have no idea. Different outcomes. So that's one thing that's kind of important here. The next one, earlier we talked about OT, and I'm severing this connection. So how does this OT box, let's say it's a camera, talk over here, right? Like, how do I do? Again, I'm transparently intercepting that traffic. It arrives right here, and I'm gonna look at it like, oh, you're coming from a branch office in Arizona. Oh, you're coming from the OT device. I know who you are. You can come over here, and I'll allow you to talk to this OT device without putting you onto the network. Simple as that. I can do that same type of workload traffic over here as well. And then I look at this and say, okay, this is actually pretty rad. We do this over and over and over again. And the next one would be like, how do you begin to troubleshoot this? Like, the only person I know on the phone right now is Steven. So think about how long it takes you today to troubleshoot a user issue, whether it's Microsoft Teams is slow. Is it a couple hours? Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it, quote unquote, fix itself sometimes? I hate that. And so that meantime to resolution is way too long, or the meantime to innocence is way too long. And so what we've done is we've baked into our product the ability to help troubleshoot stuff. And again, it's all built into this little platform, that little Zscaler client connector to help out. And so if a user, I'll work this from the bottom up. If a user is saying, hey, things suck, I can be able to come over here, do an end user notification, or even help the help desk. Like when that ticket comes in, says something is wrong, they'll hit analyze this and be like, it's the user's CPU who's causing the issue. Hey, Steven, open up the task manager, kill Adobe Updater.exe. Everything is fine. Or maybe Steve's at home and he's got a really poor Wi-Fi connection. Hey, Steven, it looks like you're really far from your Wi-Fi connection. He's like, oh, I'm on the third floor of my mansion. Let me go downstairs into the dungeon where the office is. Oh, everything's working again. Remember, like, we are smart people. We're technologists, but our users at the end of the day, they're not so, right? And so we just coach them into different behaviors. I even had one where a customer was complaining that everything sucked. And it turned out the moment the traffic left his house, there was 513 milliseconds of latency. And it was because there was an internet outage in his neighborhood. And he was like, oh, is that what that text message was from the, Cox Communications? Yes, dude. And so I also get last mile visibility right here, front side, back side, front side, back side over here. To the degree that if I had a user saying that application 3 was down, I can actually see like, oh, this is down because this is down over here. None of this stuff is in play. The ability to troubleshoot that stuff becomes done very quickly. And the last but not least, it's one thing to help out a random user. It's a whole nother world when one of your business critical applications goes down. Let's call it M365 or ServiceNow or Salesforce.com or Application 3 or Application X, if those things go down, right, the world comes to an end. Why do we let our users tell us that? And so what's going to happen is from every single endpoint as well as the Zero Trust Exchange, we're always monitoring the uptime of those applications. That if it goes down, I notify the help desk. When they click that link, they get an entire map view of the world of where all your users are at. And if the application is down for everyone, a subset, it would be very blatant. Like I've seen this with like Office 365 where it was down for the entire West Coast. And so the help desk took that out and said, notified the field. We've detected an issue with Microsoft Online. All the users are down just on the West Coast. Everyone is working. Stop opening up tickets. We're going to get this fixed right away. So again, that mean time to resolution or mean time to innocence going down from that days, weeks, month down to just a matter of minutes knowing exactly what is going on. In the interest of time, I have 3 minutes before I turn it back over to Stephen. I want to touch on BYOD. We're not going to get the DLP today, but when I think of BYOD, I think of an unsanctioned device. And obviously, if you start handing out Zscaler client connector to everyone, it's going to work. That's great, right? But there's got to be a better way. So let's say you have a third-party person that needs to talk to ServiceNow and an OT device over here. I don't want to have to install an agent. In fact, I'm going to say come over here with any modern web browser. So it could be Chrome, Firefox, Edge, it doesn't matter. And they're going to go out to like a portal page that you'll have in your authoritative DNS. Maybe it's bald-as-the-new-beautiful.brian.com or just portal.b.com. And this is how I'm going to get this user to go through that. By typing that name, it's actually a C name that points traffic over here. Now, when I do that, based upon who they are, they're going to get some icons. It's going to say ServiceNow and maybe OT device on port 22. Follow along with me as I try to do this in 30 seconds. So I'm going to secure this, I'm going to start wrapping everything in browser isolation. 2, I support multiple identity providers, so they can come in with their own identity, federated on the back end. You can kind of give them a service account, but they're only going to see what they've been pre-provisioned for. 2, this gives you the ability to allow them to work within your ServiceNow tenant without having to worry about your data going somewhere else. Because since I'm putting the browser isolation, I can stop them from copying and pasting that data and putting it over here in Grandma's PC. And then last but not least, I am in a browser window. And you're thinking, well, Brian, that's SSH. I can actually do any web-based protocol, so HTTP, HTTPS, HTML5, but I do SSH, RDP, and VNC as well. I can give this user the ability to come right here. That branch connector is like the app connector. Gives them the ability to come over here and then talk to that OT device without putting them on the network. But I'm going to turn the security up a whole lot more. Number 1, I could do a credential vault. They'll have no idea what username and password is being used to access this. They come in as Brian, but they log in as Marge. Like it's completely different. 2, I can do session proctoring or session recording. So you can sit there and watch everything that they're doing or record it, send it up over here in AWS from a remediation standpoint. And last but not least, in true Zero Trust fashion, this user might need to update this box, a piece of firmware, if they accidentally upload a piece of ransomware or 0-day. Again, my sandbox is going to kick in and block it, notify the help desk, put this user on notice. And with that said, that is my time. Stephen, I'm going to keep the screen up as we just kind of talk through some of your bullet points, unless you have a deck, and then we'll just kind of riff off of each other. Does that sound like a good idea?
That sounds like a perfect idea. I thank you for that session. It's a great overview. There's metaphors for some of the stuff in there that I've never heard before, but I will take away and use in the future. So thank you for that. So for me, if we look at this last item around the providing access to private applications and replacing VPN, quite often one of the first challenges we see or questions we get asked is, who's supposed to access what? Who is allowed to access? You said the example of Stephen's allowed to access at 1 but not 2 and 3. How do we define that? We've never had to express that before from a network control, because all we was worried about was get them on the network. The network provides reliable performance to connection to all the applications. That's all we needed to do. we just lost the screen. Do you want to slide it back again, because we've got the update?
Yep.
And so when you start to sort of look at how you can move to that zero trust policy, that can be challenging to express in the early stages. Now, I don't like the term, but we can deploy the solution in a VPN-like topology. Now, it doesn't act like a VPN. It's still got all the benefits of the solution. You've got reduced attack surface. You've got application-based forwarding to specific apps to the closest entry point to that. But what you have is the broad access to your application space. So you're still providing that broad access if you can't express it in a more defined policy. So it gives you the ability to take the product on board earlier. It also then gives you that visibility to start establishing what your zero trust policy should look like. You've got great visibility from the portals. You've also got AI recommendations and analysis of traffic patterns to give you some guidance, correlation to different types of services, servers, but also correlating to security groups as departments, so you can start building out that security policy. The other way of doing this is, and we do this quite often, is look at it from a risk perspective. I don't have to necessarily solve all my application problems, but if I can provide granular controls to my most crucial, sensitive applications, that's how I could start the process. And then I iterate on that as I go through my application landscape.
Yeah, there's one particular feature in that whole zero trust journey of helping you guys identify this. And by you guys, the customer, and we call it I hate the terminology, it's a recommended application segment. But what that really means to you is, like, let's say today you guys have 5,000 users, and all 5,000 people, because they've authenticated and they've been postured, they can talk to application one. What we're going to do is we're going to be looking at all of your users coming through, because I know everything about them, all their groups, departments, and locations. And over the course of like a week, or even a couple of days, I'll be like, hey, I know that application one shouldn't be just anybody. It should just be the marketing group. So I'm going to have a recommendation and say, I say that you take it from 5,000 people that can talk to it down to 1,500. And then on top of that, I'm also going to do a certainty score. When I do that, I'm going to say I'm 100% certain that if you do this, it's not going to disrupt any line of business. Now, it's not always the same, right? I'm going to have a bunch of 100%. I'm going to have some 76% ones on there as well. You take that risk-based approach, but it's definitely a clear way to, or at least a path to getting you guys to zero trust. And then as you onboard new applications, let's say that application 12 comes up, then I'll be able to dynamically define that application, say these are the departments and users that are using it, and that we should, and ports and protocols, by the way, and dial that down for you as well. Back to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much. If we now sort of pivot on to the great explanation you gave of protecting the internet and all those security stack items you've got listed down there, which may or may not be present in all customers.
Yeah.
One of the things you have to ask yourself when you're going into this is, do you actually understand? Zscaler gives a great amount of capability in the platform, and do you have the context from your existing services to be able to implement that capability and feature in the Zscaler solution? Now, I'm a firm believer that we've got information, we should carry it forward, but I also recognize that trying to do rule migration is not a great outcome. And the way that we approach it is we look at the intent of your existing controls aligned with policy, and then apply that to the Zscaler platform. And the reason we do it that way is we don't get locked into trying to do a legacy approach on a new platform. We want to make sure that the intent is delivered in the best way that the platform can achieve that. For solutions for security capabilities you don't have any context on, then we can actually, again, put the platform into play, get visibility of the traffic, and start pulling that data out to start incrementally improving the security outcomes and the controls of the platform without having that undesirable effect of operational impact that can sometimes cause users to be unsatisfied with the user experience when putting Zscaler on. The whole idea is that we're not only increasing their security posture, securing their traffic, securing their work, but also that they are not seeing any detrimental experience as part of this process. The way that we do this from a implementation point of view, and its key stages, and I think again, Zscaler, it's aligned to Zscaler. We go through a pre-pilot testing phase, validation of the solution against your core applications with a group of test users. We establish, validate, and ensure that critical apps are working as expected. Then as we go into pilot, what we're bringing in then is business personas, representations of people in the organizations that have different use cases. And the concept there is that we're ensuring for those use cases that, again, the Zscaler solution is delivering the outcomes we expect, does not have any operational impacts for the users. Also through pilot, and it can get forgotten sometimes, we make sure we establish the support mechanisms. So the workflows, the work instructions, the triage process into the service desk and support functions, so that at the end of pilot, we have validated configuration against our common use cases across the business. We have a support mechanism that is ready and capable of going forward. And all those are designed to reduce the impact on users, improve the user experience, and also ensure that we don't overwhelm the support function as we go into full rollout. And Brian was spot on regarding that next piece, and the pace of that is going to be risk-based. And it may not be a consistent pace. It may well be that you ramp up over a course of period, more and more people on a week-by-week basis as you get to analyze the impact, look at the support tickets, and get the confidence that you are capable of rolling it out without causing detrimental impact on support or your users. Brian, does that align to what the way you've experienced? You approach it.
Yeah, 100%. I always say there is no big bang moment, right? We start off small, IT, friends and family, and then start to roll that out. I would tell you, I'm getting a horrible echo, so let me turn this down a little bit. From my experience, it's always, well, at least it should be this way. Users 1 to 100 should be far more difficult than users 101 to 1 million, to be honest with you. It's the little things at the end of the day that we work through together, right? A good example would be, I have an agent right here, right, that wants to take control of your traffic and send it somewhere. If you have EDR in place and you don't tell me, we're going to have a bad time, right? Like if CrowdStrike's like, wait a second, why is this Zscaler thing taking it? We're going to have a challenge. So I always say, like, users 1 to 100, once we get that ironed out, we're good to go. This, by the way, business as usual, I would say is I wouldn't call it boring. It is transformative. But this, again, this is like, 35% to 40% of what we can actually do with the platform. And then it just kind of goes on and on from there. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate everyone for watching today. I don't know if this is recorded, but thank you so much. I appreciate you. And back over to you, Steve.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope it's been informative. By all means, please reach out if you have any questions. There'll be links on the. Actually, thank you for returning that. I'll just put my camera back on. There'll be links on the actual webinar if you want to reach out and get more information on it. What I would say is, what really helps, understand what you're trying to achieve. Work with your Zscaler partner and Zscaler to define the use cases. Understand your environment. It comes back to what you said, Brian. If we get visibility up front of what's there, what you need, and the actual locations you work in, we can make sure that both the solution is scoped correctly and that we're ahead of any anomalies we may find later on. And that makes for a much smoother implementation. I much rather identify hurdles early on and walk round them rather than get to them and have to try and jump over them, especially with my stature. But thank you very much. And I will close off.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
Thank you.